What's up YouTube, Jeff back again today, another very exciting tech video for you guys. And today we're talking more Galaxy S26 Ultra. One of my favorite videos that I make every year is the first things to do video. We're gonna talk about everything that you need in order to get your phone set up, go through security settings, any of the new features like the new privacy display, audio eraser in third-party apps, etc., and make sure that you're all good to go out of the box. Now, I also have another video where I talk about additional more advanced settings that you might want to change or tweak, but this one's all about the essentials and getting set up right out of the box. So let's go ahead and get started. So the first thing you're going to want to do is go into your privacy and security settings and make sure you've got everything set up there the way you want. Now, you probably already did the basic setup when you went through and you unboxed your phone, which is fine, but you want to go in here and make sure that you do set up your fingerprints in an appropriate way. Now you'll notice, first of all, you guys see how privacy display activated there? I have it set so that when I have to put in my biometrics, it automatically activates and then it goes away. So when you have your fingerprints, which most people use, a lot of people don't know that you can set up redundant fingerprints. So I set up my two thumbs, which I use the most, and then I set them up again. So like fingerprint 3, I set this thumb up for a second time. And so what I'll do here is you can check your fingerprint, obviously, first of all. But what I'll do is I'll set up my other thumb a second time as well. So I'll register it in here. And a lot of people don't realize that you can do this. Samsung lets you enroll your fingerprints twice if you want. And it actually gives it a better capture because obviously you're going to get slightly different angles of your fingerprint each time. And so it's actually going to give you a higher accuracy rate when using your fingerprint. So I highly recommend that if you haven't done this before, to enroll your fingerprint multiple times, and it'll give you extra security. Not security, but rather it'll make it more fluid to unlock. You'll have less false readings. Fingerprint unlock, you make sure you turn on these settings you want when you want the icon on down here. A lot of people don't even see these because they never go this deep into the privacy and security menu. So you're already kind of ahead of the game there. Face recognition, if you want it, I don't use it personally, but you can also find this right here and set it up, which you could also, again, do during your original setup and unboxing. You can put in your various other types of biometrics, but then there's other stuff you should set up as well. Up here, loss of device protection for sure. Go into Find My Mobile and make sure you turn on Send Last Location because this is off by default. This will make sure that if you do lose your phone, you can find your phone, and it's a really nice feature to have on. Theft protection as well gives you a lot of different options here. You've got theft detection lock, which I definitely recommend turning on. These are all from Google. Offline device lock, failed authentication lock, and then remote lock, which you can also turn on by going to android.com/lock. So these are all Google features that are built into Android. And so Samsung doesn't talk about them as much. You've also got identity check as well, which you can do by setting up safe places. So I'll probably do this later when I get home because I'm still traveling in San Francisco for Unpacked. But this is also another good feature to set up as well, and I highly recommend that you do. You also have other things here. You have your account security, app security, which is going to recommend that you turn on auto blocker usually. I don't usually turn this on, but it's really up to you. If you're an average user, it's probably a good idea. Since I sideload a lot of things and play around with stuff for my job at SemiGuru, I don't, but it's probably a good idea for most people. And then down here is auto blocker, which I talked about before. Auto blocker is probably a good idea at the basic level for someone who's just a regular user. It blocks commands over USB, unauthorized sources, non-official software updates, which most average people don't want any of that stuff. And so you'll probably want to just have this on. Now, the more extreme version, there's also like an advanced auto blocker. That one goes a little further and actually can mess with some of your picture settings and your MMS. I would not turn that on necessarily. You can check your permissions down here, and you can control access to the camera and everything. You can also alert when the clipboard is accessed, which is not a bad feature to turn on, although it can be annoying, I guess, if you copy and paste a lot of things. So those are most of the security settings that you want to go in and turn on right here inside of the main settings menu. And that brings me to my second thing that you absolutely need to do with the Galaxy S26 Ultra, and that is get a quality case ASAP. And that's where the sponsor of today's video, Benks, comes into play. Benks sent over their full Galaxy S26 Ultra case lineup, and I've been rotating through them in my hands-on time here in San Francisco. Their Armor Pro series gives maximum protection, and it also doesn't turn your S26 Ultra into a brick. The Armor Pro series is the move if you want that maximum drop protection with Kevlar fiber and shock absorbing frame, so you get real drop protection, reinforced corners, and raised camera lips. They feel solid and confidence inspiring, but they're still slimmer than most rugged cases out there. Next, we have the Aurora and Armor Grid variants. The Aurora version adds a little more visual flair, subtle patterns that catch light differently depending on the angle. Next, we have the Armor Air series, which is for minimal and lightweight protection that still gives you that security. If you prefer something lighter, the Armor Air series keeps things extremely slim and pocket friendly while still using that secure Kevlar construction. This is probably my favorite for daily use because it preserves the slim S26 Ultra feel, which is one of those year-over-year advantages, and it still gives you that peace of mind. Across the entire lineup, you get strong magnetic compatibility, which is huge if you're using magnetic chargers, stands, or car mounts, and since Samsung didn't include the magnets in the phone itself, you do need a magnetic compatible case to use all these accessories. And if you picked up one of the more unique S26 Ultra colors and actually want to show it off, they also have a clear option that protects the phone while letting the design shine through. I know a lot of you guys out there who chose the pink gold or that cobalt violet are definitely going to be interested in that. So before you continue tweaking settings or doing anything else, make sure you get a great case. Huge shout out to our sponsor, Benks Official, for sending these over. They make some great options. Check out the links in the pinned comment description. I'll also have any discount codes or relevant deals that they have down there as well. We really appreciate them sending them out. Now let's go ahead and get back to our list. Next up, we're going to spend a lot of time inside the display settings because there's a lot of stuff in here, especially this year with privacy display. But first, I want to talk about the navigation settings. So go down to navigation bar inside of display settings. Got a few things you want to look at. Obviously, first you want to choose your buttons versus swipe gestures. Now, Samsung still has the buttons as the default in 2026. I have absolutely no idea why that is. Doesn't really make a lot of sense to me, but that is what they're doing. So you can choose the swipe gestures if you want. Now, I always have swipe gestures on. There's also more options. You can block gestures with the S Pen, which I always do turn on because I use the S Pen a decent amount. Gesture sensitivity can also be tuned, but I find that the default is actually pretty good. It's on the second level. If you turn it up, then it's really too sensitive for me, and I end up triggering the gestures when I don't mean to. So that's something you can play with yourself and see, but that's my personal opinion. Circle to search, you can choose if you want to have circle to search on or off. Basically, if you hold down the home button, you're going to get circle to search, and you can just circle a portion of your screen and it'll tell you something about it. And now it's usually going to give you an AI overview, of course, because that's what Google is doing now. And also, you probably noticed, you also have the ability to use Nano Banana now to create something and also select text directly from the screenshot. So those are a couple of things that have been added over the last year to circle to search. And you can also translate what's on your screen. Now, obviously, I have English on my screen, so I don't need to translate it. But if I did, I could. There's also a number of other things up here. Search history, things like this. And donate lens images. This is a new feature that it's kind of interesting. If you turn this on, what's going to happen is it allows circle to search to be reviewed by humans to improve Google products. And that would be like if you want to let them use your personal info. I wouldn't recommend that, but that's up to you. So this is your navigation settings and circle to search. Make sure you tune those the way you want, whether you want the 3-button nav or you do want those gestures that I'm using. Now let's dig into some other display settings because there's a lot of other stuff here. I'm going to skip privacy display and do that last because it's brand new and deserves its own attention. We've got light versus dark mode, adaptive brightness, which I normally have on, obviously most people do, but right now since I'm making a video, I keep the brightness at a steady amount so it doesn't mess up, the metering for the light. Privacy display, like I said, will come back. Motion smoothness, this is making sure that you take advantage of that maximum 120 hertz refresh. It's adaptive out of the box, so you should leave that on. I usually turn this on sometimes when I'm reading. You can also set up a schedule if you want, which is something that I kind of like to do. Set up a custom schedule. Sunset is usually too early for me, but maybe like 11 p.m. Set that up, and then it'll turn on 11 p.m. That way, if it's at night, I get that eye comfort shield and it takes care of me. Adaptive color tone. This adapts things to ambient lighting. I do not like this. Some people do. It's going to make it look warmer when you have warm sunlight. Just not my personal preference. It's something that Apple's had for a while, and Samsung has also had for a while. It's a pretty common feature. It's not something I usually leave on. Screen mode, you can do vivid or natural. Again, this is going to come down to personal preference, but to me, natural looks too muted. With vivid, you can still play with the white balance, and you can play with your RGB and your vividness. You can actually turn the vividness up if you want, which I usually turn it up 1. I don't play with the RGB values too much, but if you're really into the color science side of displays, you could do that. Font size and style, you've got a couple different styles. You can also get more from the Galaxy Store. Bold font if you want, make your font larger. I've always found the default to be fine. I mean, Samsung does a lot of research to make sure, they're giving you a font that people can read out of the box. Screen resolution, QHD. So I always turn this on. It's always FHD plus out of the box. So if you want to get the maximum, power of your display, make sure you make that change if you do want to get that high resolution. Of course, it will drain the battery a little bit more. Camera cutout, you can hide this if you want. I mean, I haven't really seen a lot of people want to do this anymore. When we first started getting punch hole displays, a lot of people wanted to hide the camera cutout, but I haven't seen any complaints about that recently. Screen timeout, you definitely don't want to leave this on 5 minutes. I have it on there because I'm making a video and I don't want to time out while I'm talking. You can also keep screen on while viewing, which is a nice feature. Edge panels, they've kind of really, gimped the edge panels over time, but you still have apps, people, tasks. I usually leave a couple of these ones on here. Weather, turn on the ones that you want. Reminders, voice changers are kind of a cool one they've added, recently. And then those are accessible over here. You'll be able to thumb through and get a look at all of your various information, your favorite contacts, etc. Show in landscape mode if you want to show edge panels there. I talked about the nav bar. Accidental touch protection, always turn that on if you have it in your pocket. Make sure you don't get accidental touches. Touch sensitivity, this is if you have a screen protector. I wouldn't really use it otherwise. And then you have the screensaver. I don't really ever use the screensaver, but you can turn it on colors or something like that, just in case, you end up needing a screensaver while your phone's charging, or if you like to have one, that's there. All right, so next let's talk about privacy display. This is the big one, and there are a lot of stock settings here that you're going to want to play with. I highly recommend that you don't run privacy display all the time because it does affect the apparent quality of the screen. What I mean by that is increase the contrast, makes it look a little grainy when you turn it up or down, because it does decrease those viewing angles. It's just it's just the light and physics. You can't change that. So don't turn it on all the time. Instead, use the conditions. There's a few conditions you can use. So you can do per app, turn it on based on the certain apps that you want to use it in, which is what I've done so far. Beeper, Chat, and FanDuel. These are just examples. I don't know I'll really use them in those, but messaging apps seem like a good potential people might want. Pin, pattern, and password, so no one sees that secure information. And then notification pop-ups. You can make sure that it works on all your notification pop-ups. People won't be able to see those from the side. Now, you can turn on maximum protection also for these individual options. Keep in mind, though, maximum protection is very aggressive. The notifications themselves are going to look kind of gray, really gray, if you turn on maximum protection, even if you're only doing it for part of the screen. Now, I think it's okay, because if you're only doing it for notifications and certain apps, it's okay. But it definitely does look, really, really grainy. So if I can show really quickly, let's see. If I open FanDuel, I don't think I've set up FanDuel on this particular phone, but you can see how the screen becomes very dim when I go into the app. Like there's a little gray haze over it, and it's even more aggressive if you're in dark mode. So that's something to be aware of. Now, the other thing I recommend, though, is outside of those stock settings, you can also trigger using the side key. So if you press the side key and volume down, you'll get the side button settings. And in here, you can turn on your double press, and instead of having the camera open, you can open privacy display, which I think is actually better for me, because then I can double press this, privacy display is on. I always mess up the second double press. Double press this, it's off. Double press, it's on. Double press, it's off, or vice versa. Anyway, you can trigger it easily in manual situations that you want to use it, which I think is very convenient and something a lot of people want to do. The other thing you can do to make sure you're not using it all the time, but using it when you want, is you can go into routines, modes and routines, and I did this earlier in another video, set up a routine where when you arrive at a location, right now I'm at the hotel in San Francisco, it turns on the privacy display automatically. And you have the option to turn on maximum or not with the routine. So you can decide if you want that maximum or not. Now, the only thing that I don't like is you should be able to go a little deeper and say, if I'm at this location, turn on privacy display, but only for these certain apps or only for notifications. Right now, I think you can only turn this on or off entirely when you're at that location. At least that seems to be the case here within the routine. So again, highly recommend making sure you set up either side key, routines, per app. Don't use privacy display all the time, because it is going to probably not make you super happy with your display, which you're not going to like. So those are some nice options that you can use. Up next, let's talk about audio eraser in third-party apps. Now, audio eraser has existed now for a while. You could use it in the gallery. There's really nothing to turn on. If you go into Galaxy Eye it tells you what it does. But with the S26 series, there's a big upgrade to Audio Eraser, and that upgrade is now you can use it with third-party applications. So if you go into the Galaxy, if you go into something like YouTube and you find a video, let me find one of my favorite creators for watches, Teddy Baldassar, and if you open up a video and you're watching this video, now you can swipe down into quick settings, you'll have Audio Eraser right here. So turn this on, you can now determine how much strength you want. If you turn it up, it's going to get rid of more background noise, like background music. And if you turn voice focus on, it does an even crazier job.
If you have $5,000, which is a budget many people have for a luxury watch,
and it really does. It isolates the voice. It's kind of hard to see, pick up on video, but the voice focus does a great job of isolating the voice in the video, and it will make it a lot easier to watch videos that not only have background noise, but if you want to get rid of the background music, it pretty much does that as well. Now, this works in Netflix, it works in Instagram, works in TikTok. So I really think this is a big feature. I just want to make people aware of it. Obviously, you don't have to turn anything on for this, but if you didn't know about it and you didn't know how to turn it on, you do need to turn it on in the quick settings once the video is playing. And if you didn't know about that, then you might not look for it. So definitely check out Audio Eraser in third-party apps, especially in YouTube. Next, let's talk about Bixby auto call screening and scam detection. So if you go into the phone app, got some new stuff up here in the settings. And the first one is call screening. Now, text call has been here for a while where you could manually have Bixby answer your calls and you'd have some, sorry there, Bixby. You have some prompts that you would be able to feed to the person who called. But now you can actually have Bixby take full control, just like the Pixels have auto call screening. So it'll answer the calls, ask the caller who they are, you'll see all the information, and they'll go back and forth on their own, and you don't have to do anything. So I have it set to auto screen calls. You can do just suspected spam or scam, which works with the scam detection that I'll show you guys in a second, which is also new, or any unknown callers who basically just aren't your contacts in some sense. It kind of explains here, but I like that because it seems like every call I get that's not a contact is a scam in 2026. You can also change your language, you can change your voice, there's only two, and the speech rate. You can turn it up real fast if you want to mess with the scammers. And this is an awesome feature. I love using it on the Pixel, so definitely turn this on, I would say, and try it, at least for spam if you don't want to do it for every unknown call, if you're not as crazy as I am. But down here, you've also got scam protection, which is new. This is great for older people, but just anyone really. It uses AI to determine if the call that you're currently on is likely to be a scam, and it will alert you. And so it'll play a tone or vibrate so that you know it's likely to be a scam. There's lots of scams out there, and like I said, for older people, senior citizens especially, they might not be good at recognizing those scams, and so now they get this feature which will help them identify and assist and hopefully avoid those scams. So definitely if you have an older person that you know is getting an S26 device or you're gifting one to them, make sure you go ahead and set this up for them. Next, we'll talk about a little personal preference, but I think a lot of people don't know about this, so it's worth talking about. If you go into your app drawer and you go to sort, you can obviously sort with alphabetical order, and alphabetical order is my preference, but Samsung still has custom out of the box. I think it makes no sense to sort your apps by the time they're installed. So I highly recommend doing alphabetical order, which does give you this vertical kind of scanning. But also, if you do like custom, you can now go into custom and you can go into sort. You can now go into clean up pages, and this will rearrange them to fill them. So even if you use custom, make sure you use that clean up pages option to get your pages kind of cleaned up and looking nicer. So just choose your app drawer settings. There's obviously a lot of other home screen settings here as well, which are interesting, and we can talk about those really quickly. You can choose your home screen size, your grid size. I will say if you change to 5x6, which I actually prefer, a lot of the widgets don't look correct, so just keep that in mind. The app screen column, I always choose the maximum. Of course, I am using Home Up, which is a good lock module to do this. I'll talk more about that in a future video. Choose your folder grid, which I always like the maximum size folder grid as well. Show Finder on the home screen, which is also a new feature. If you show Finder on the home screen, it's going to be right here above your bottom app row, and then that'll open Finder directly. That's actually a pretty useful feature, I think, so I would say it's probably worth enabling that feature. And then down here, add new apps to home screen. I always turn that off because it adds every new app to your home screen. Swipe down a notification panel, always love that. and then rotate to landscape mode. That way, even if you're on the home screen, you will, well, I always show this in a tutorial and then I forget to turn on the actual rotation. If you turn on rotation, it'll rotate your phone in landscape mode as well. So there's a lot of useful stuff in there that you can play around with, as well as widgets, which I'll talk about towards the end. We'll talk about how to go in there and add some widgets that are useful. Up next, let's talk a little bit about the wallpaper and styles. So there's a couple new styles, including the one that I'm using here. Make sure you get a quality wallpaper. There's a couple you could try. Of course, there's the stock wallpaper. I never keep it that long. You have generative edit. You also have Create a Studio now, where you can create a wallpaper that's a little bit more hands-on with you involved. Generative edit was just basically AI doing all the work, but now you can describe what you want in a text box and it will create it. It does a little bit more job. It's more personalized. In fact, I don't know why they didn't just get rid of generative edit, but I guess maybe some people don't want to do any work. You've also got the ambient weather one where you'll be able to get like, you need a picture that's like outdoors to do this. Let me choose this one I took at Unpacked. Let's see. So now you can see like it's got the snow there. So this is pretty cool. The ambient weather, it doesn't really do anything in Phoenix though, because it doesn't snow or rain ever. And then you've got these dynamic colors wallpapers, which are the ones that I'm using right now, and I kind of like a lot. There's also other great options. My friend Luke Andrik, who has one for Wall and Thematica, are a couple great apps where I get wallpapers from all the time. So if you guys are looking for a wallpaper, you can see a privacy display there activated too if my notification came in. It works really well. So if you're looking for a wallpaper, check out those apps, and there's some good stock options as well, but make sure you set those. And then you can also go in and do, if you long press on the home screen, you can, set up your lock screen as well, and this will give you a lot of great options. There's a lot of cool stuff to play around with, including the adaptive clock in One UI 8.5. You do need a wallpaper that actually works with that, but you've got that option. There's a lot of new clock styles in addition to the adaptive clock. I'm using Lockstar, so you can get even more crazy things. You can see here, you can change the style of the dynamic wallpaper, so you can change how it looks over time if you want a certain look. For the one that I'm using. But there's a lot of cool things you can do with the lock screen. And I will do a future tutorial with getting into that customization, because that's probably a whole video on its own, especially using Lockstar. But definitely set up your lock screen and your wallpaper as well. Now let's talk a little bit about Now Brief and Now Nudges. So if we go into the Galaxy AI section, first Now Brief. Now Brief now allows a lot of content in it. So go in there and make sure you turn on everything you want. YouTube is actually very good now because, well, if you do this, you have an option down here where it says Get Richer Insights. This is new. You can turn on YouTube in Gemini, and this is going to give you more insights into what kind of videos you like, and also, travel recommendations and stuff from Gemini. And of course, it's going to use your data, but it's going to give you more information. You can also manage your personal data being used down at the bottom. Now, also, I turn on everything, but you can turn off stuff that you don't want from in here for Now Brief. And you can turn on Audio Brief, which will then let you read it from your Now Brief and expand your Now Brief without unlocking. So if you turn on the Audio Brief, when you go in here, you get this little audio reader at the top. It's going to read you your Now Brief here at the top and tell you everything that you want to know that's on the screen. So you have all that information there. So definitely set that up. And then new this time with the S26 Ultra is the Now Nudges, which hasn't been revealed until the launch yesterday. Get things done quickly. Now Nudges basically will understand what's on your screen, suggest actions, and it will give you information you need for doing tasks that you're currently working on. So you can only turn this on or off. You can't turn individual things on or off, but you can, once again, manage the personal data and what data it's pulling from in order to, give you these helpful features. So make sure you customize that to your preference and make sure you set that up how you want. Next, let's talk about motions and gestures, because this is a pretty useful one. So if we go down to advanced features, you can go into multi-window and motions and gestures, turn on the motions and gestures you want. I love double tap to turn on and off, alert when the phone is picked up, mute with gestures, and palm swipe to capture. Screenshot always works, has worked on Samsung for a long time. You just gotta get it correct. There it is. Love that feature. It's been around forever. I turn lift to wake off, but you can turn that on if you want. Also, multi-window. I love these gestures. Swipe for split screen. Swipe from the top corner to get your pop-up view, which is a great gesture because I use pop-up view a lot. Turn those on. Both very, very useful features to make sure you have enabled. Battery protection is the next thing. So I highly recommend, it doesn't really do any damage. Go down to battery protection. I think it's worth deciding if you want basic or you want maximum. You now can't really turn this on or off, but you do have the option for sleep time protection. Stop charging at 80% while you're asleep and finish charging before you wake up. It does take some learning curve time, so it's going to leave you less than 100 for a few days, but I think it's worth it because it extends the life of your battery. Now, maximum charging stops at a level that you're going to set. If you're willing to do this, it's okay, but I like to have mine at 100, so I just do this protection, which I think is probably the best balance for most people, but definitely worth looking at and turning this on in some capacity. The final thing I want to mention is widgets. Make sure you set up the widgets how you want. There are a lot of useful widgets, and Samsung has added more over time. Of course, you got Now Brief, which is already there, but Samsung has a lot of useful first-party widgets. The calendar widgets, countdown widgets. There's a lot of good stuff here that you can go through and find that you might find useful. Digital well-being, device care. There's a lot of good first-party widgets. Gallery has a bunch of different cutout versions. I find the Gemini widget very useful because then obviously you can utilize Gemini directly from the home screen, which is useful. There's a bunch of different versions of health too, so if you don't like the version that's there out of the box, you can set that up, which also has your energy and sleep scores and steps. There's so many different health ones. Samsung Internet modes and routines. If you want to trigger one of those routines, like the privacy display that I talked about earlier, you can set up a shortcut or widget for that as well. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed the first things to do with your Galaxy S26 Ultra. If you guys have any questions about setting up your phone or anything else, I'm happy to get back to you in the comments. Also, check out sammyguru.com, our website, so that you can get any other tips, tricks that we've done on the written side. We're doing lots of interesting guides over there. I'll have more video coverage coming up soon. Again, definitely check out our sponsor of the video today, Benks. If you guys are looking for a great case, they make some great light cases that are still super protective. Highly recommend those. I've been using them here in San Francisco on my S26 Ultra since I got it. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks so much for watching.